and it was like building, and it's like, I liked that story. As for the rest of the stories, they kind of lost me. It's just so like anticlimactic. He's a poop. I don't like him. He's a poop. It is me, it is I. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ivy, also known as the Geek Goddess here on YouTube. And today we're going to be doing my June reading wrap up. So let's go ahead and get started. So during the month of June, I did really good. Okay, I read a total of 13 books, which is great, which is fantastic, which is amazing. I'm super proud of myself, especially after being in a reading slump for a very long time. So yeah! Cheers, bravo to me. And now my reading drive is back up again. I'm having so much fun reading books again, and I'm just happy. My reading stats, I read a total of 13 books, which is about 3,947 pages. My average time that I finished these books were 2 days. And most of the books that I read were dark and mysterious. And that's pretty much all year round. Most of the books that I read apparently are dark. 67% of them were medium paced and 33% of them were fast paced, and 38% of them were less than 300 pages, 54% of them were between 300 to 499 pages, and 8% of them were 500 pages. The most read genre this month, or for June, was LGBTQIA+. Of course, it is Pride Month, so we had to. Then it was fantasy, and then it's romance coming in third, and fourth is historical, which is shocking to me because I thought I didn't like historical books, but here we are. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the books. Okay, so starting off with my 2-star read. I'm so sad to say this because the cover is absolutely gorgeous, but my 2-star read for this month, I have no 1-star reads, which is great, which is fantastic, but I did have a 2-star. You can even say it's 1.5, but that book is going to go to The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. This book, especially the edition that I have, is just absolutely gorgeous, and I really wanted to like this book. Like, it is medieval horror, and I was like, yes. I used to be so obsessed with the medieval times when I was younger, so I was like, yes, medieval horror, put those two together, heck yeah. But I don't know where that disconnection came in. If you guys don't know, this one we're following our main character. What's her name? I think her name is Focine. So Focine, she was a nun that would pray to these saints, and then she turned into a sorceress / scientist, and she and a whole bunch of other people are crammed into this castle called Amar Castle because they are under attack, and they've been in there for 6 months and they are running out of food. So our main character, Focine, she is able to take contaminated water and purify it and, make it clean so that people could drink the water without, getting sick and dying. However, that being said, the king wants her to start making food appear out of nowhere. And so she tries to go do all these experiments and try to actually do it until the king is like, you know what? It's not working, and he grabs his knight and he tells his knight like that they might start eating people, like the people that pass away, but not telling the people that it is human meat. And so right when that's about to happen, the saints come out of nowhere, the saints that these people pray to, and Focine feels like she's the one that did it, like she called in these saints, but something is very, very fishy and off about these saints. So are they really, like, all of a sudden all the hunger's gone, there's food, there's water, but there's something off about these little saints. So then thus ensues the story here. However, I don't know. I don't know if it's because there was a disconnection between the audiobook. Maybe it would have been better if I read it physically, but I just did not really like it. I don't know. It lost me a few times. I just felt like the story was, like, the concept itself was really great. However, the execution, not so much, not so much. I didn't really care for the characters. I feel like every single character sort of had the same personality, and none of them, not one character seemed different from the other, and I would even get the characters mixed up sometimes, and I'd be like, wait, who is this again? Because all the characters were so alike, if that makes any sense. And so, yeah, it just lost me. And there was just times where I was like, kind of like not paying attention to the audiobook, and I was like, wait, what's happening again? Because I just did not care that much. So unfortunately, The Starving Saints is a 2-star read for me. At least that's all for my 2-star reads, because next we are moving on to my 3-star reads. So at the very bottom of my 3-star reads is Ghost Camera by Darcy Coates. This is actually my lowest rated Darcy Coates book, because I have only read 2 other books by her, and they have both been like 4 and 5 stars. This one, I didn't know going into this that this was a short story collection. I thought that the whole book was going to be this Ghost Camera story, which apparently it's not. But this is a collection of short stories, but the main story that takes up a big chunk of this book is Ghost Camera, which is about a girl who is doing wedding photography, and she steps on a Polaroid camera and she picks it up and she starts taking photos, only to realize that this camera takes pictures of ghosts. However, the more and more she takes pictures of ghosts, the closer and closer these ghosts are getting to her. And thus ensues a series of events that happen, and I liked that story. As for the rest of the stories, they kind of lost me. There was one story in particular that I liked even more than Ghost Camera. It was like one where there's this plane that crashes and there's only like 2 survivors. That story was so good. I loved that. If she had taken that concept and made a whole novel out of that, I would have loved it. But because it's a short story collection, it makes it really hard to rate it high, because there's multiple stories, right? So if you don't like the majority of the stories, your rating is going to be a lot lower versus if it was in itself a whole novel. So I feel like that's where it gets tricky with authors writing short story collections. So this was a 3-star read. Nothing really amazing to say about it. It was like whatever. The stories still stand out in my mind. At least the Ghost Camera one did, and the one with the snow. The rest of them kind of all got muddled and I kind of forgot. And yeah, so that's Ghost Camera. So that's my 3-star read. Coming in next at 3.5 stars. So we're moving up to 3.5 stars now, you guys, is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft. I have been wanting to read this book ever since it came in for me. Because I just love the cover. Okay, I just love the cover. I thought it was gorgeous. But tell me why. I hadn't read the synopsis, and so I automatically looked at this and I was like, oh, it's a vampire novel. It's not a vampire novel. It has nothing to do with vampires, but it is a nice fantasy story in which we're following these 2 characters, Lorelai and Sylvia. So this is Lorelai, this is Sylvia. And Sylvia was a princess, but because her kingdom has kind of been taken over, they both work for this like woman that's like a researcher or something like that. And then she basically sends them on an investigation. However, on an expedition, but during this expedition, somebody unalives her, and so then that mystery, it becomes a mystery, whodunit, all that jazz. And it was good. However, I feel like the pacing was inconsistent. I feel like it was, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, even though the events happened and there were interesting things that happened, maybe it's just the writing style that just made it seem like a fever dream and not really like I was part of the story, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it's almost like reading a summary of a book. I don't know, maybe it's just the writing style that just like didn't click for me. But yeah, so I think that's where the disconnect was. However, I did like this story. It wasn't anything extraordinary. It wasn't anything that like stood out, but I didn't hate it, and I never got the urge to DNF it. So that already in itself is like, okay, this is gonna get at least a 3.5 star, and it did. So that's this one. Next for my 3.5 stars is I Can't Say No to the Lonely Girl by, volume 6 by Kashikaze. This is the last and final installment of I Can't Say No to the Lonely Girl, which is a Sapphic GL manga in which we are following these two girls here. And one of them is basically, this one wants to like get into this school, and so she wants the teacher to write her a recommendation, and the teacher's like, okay, if you can get Sora, I think her name is Sora, to come to school, I will give you that letter of recommendation, but she needs to start doing good in school. And so she tries to get her to go, and Sora's like, fine, I'll go, but you have to do a favor for me every single day. And so she does, and Sora starts going to school, and they form this friendship that blossoms into a relationship, and the story wrapped up really nicely. I read this because my daughter loves these. She's 14, she's a teenager, and she's obsessed with GL, okay? She is obsessed with GL, and so she's like, Mom, I really want you to read these books. And so I am. Every book that she's telling me to read, like she wants me to read these Five Nights at Freddy's books and all that, I am willing to read everything that she puts in front of me, but I told her, you know what, daughter, I have been reading everything that you throw at me, so it's my turn to recommend you a book. And so I gave her Throne of Glass. I have given her Throne of Glass, which was originally YA up until book 5. So we'll see when we get to that book. But right now, she's loving it. So, so yeah, this book is good. I highly recommend it to anybody that wants a slice of life, GL, low stakes sort of book. It's perfect for the summer. It's perfect for spring, even if you want to read it. It's not like it's spring anymore, but it's a good book for those kind of seasons when you want something like soft and light and fluffy. Last but certainly not least, for my 3.5 stars, we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This one was in a reading vlog that I did, which was reading Sapphic vampire books. And I was so excited for this, you guys, because I have read, how many books have I read by V.E. Schwab? 2? I think A Gathering of Shadows. Those books, I think I read them when I was younger and I loved them. And so I was so excited. I was like, yes, a Sapphic vampire novel by V.E. Schwab. This is going to be amazing. And it was. Initially, this book was good. We are following 3 different main characters. We are following Maria from 1532. We are following Charlotte from 1827. And lastly, we are following Alice from 2019. So we're basically following these 3 women throughout 3 different timelines. And in the end, you kind of see how everything pieces together. That's not a spoiler. I'm not telling you anything that happens, but obviously, usually when you have books like this, you know, the characters, you realize why these timelines were kind of like mix. You know what I mean? The first part I was obsessed with. Maria, it was a badass. Okay, she was alive during the 1500s and she played this meek little innocent woman so that she can get a man to marry her. And when she did, she was like, I don't give a shiznit about this man. I just want his money. And so she, oh gosh, like this was a woman ahead of her time, and I was absolutely obsessed with the parts of Maria. But then she did something that I don't want to say because I don't want to spoil it. And from there, it kind of lost me. And then we follow Alice, and Alice's story is pretty interesting. It's okay, but I loved following Maria the most. And honestly, the biggest problem that I had with this book is that I don't feel like it needed to be this thick. I don't feel like it needed to be over 500 pages. I really think this book could have been wrapped up in like 350 pages to 400 pages. It did not have to be 528 pages. I really don't think it did. And if it had been shorter, I really do think that this book would have been a 4.5, maybe even a 5-star for me. But it just started to feel like it was so dragged out, and then I got bored. You know what I mean? So I feel like if this book was shorter, it definitely would have had a higher rating. It did not need to be this long. It did not need to be this long. So, but that's my final thoughts for this book. Now, moving on to 4 stars. So for the lower end of the 4 stars, we have Leather and Lark by Brianne Weaver. I really liked this book. I liked Butcher and Blackbird. just as much as, honestly, like some people are like, I love Butcher and Blackbird, I hated Leather and Lark. And then I hear some people say, I love Leather and Lark, I hate Butcher and Blackbird. But honestly, to me, they were pretty equal in my enjoyment of them. This is a 4-star read for me. I honestly don't prefer one over the other. I think they were both equally as good. I think the characters were equally as fun to follow. And sorry, I just realized the books are like right there in your face. I'm so sorry. But I can't really, I guess I can I tell you? I mean, it's a trilogy, but they all follow different characters. So I guess I won't tell you what this book is about, but just know it has the same concept as Butcher and Blackbird, where serial unalivers that fall in love, and it's a lot of humor. It's humorous, you know what I mean? It's pretty, even for it being like the characters being serial unalivers, the whole book has a very like lighthearted tone. I loved the romance between these two characters. I can tell you that this one, while the first book is friends to lovers, this book is pretty much enemies to lovers, but it worked. It was fantastic. I loved it. And what I also love about these books is not only does it tell you like the trigger warnings in the very front, like right in front of your face so that you are warned, it has a freaking playlist, which is so awesome. And it tells you there is a different song for each chapter. Like, okay, for the prologue, this is the song. For chapter 1, listen to these songs. And it literally has a little QR code to like scan them so you can listen to the playlist. I love that. I think that's such a personal touch to these books. I have not listened to the playlist yet, but I definitely want to check it out, because this was amazing. Like I loved it. I love that the author did that she took the time to really find songs for each and every single chapter and put them in her book. And the fact that an author is like willing to do that is just, I have to check out the playlist. So Leather and Lark by Brianne Weaver. If you don't have any hard triggers, I recommend this series. It's really fun and cute. Next, on the opposite side of the spectrum, this one's a lot darker, but okay, another 4-star read is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This one I am reading for a reading vlog that hasn't come out yet, where I'm reading Abby Jimenez for the first time to see if she's worth it or not. And this book, all of Abby Jimenez's books deal with mental issues, like mental health issues, which I really love. Like, she explores anxiety, she explores dementia, like she always explores a different sort of mental health topic, which I absolutely love. So our main character goes in, I can't remember her name, I'll put it here, because she got a cat, right? And then the cat cannot go to the restroom, and it turns out that the cat does not have a hole to go to the restroom in. And so the doctor is like, just put the cat down, put it out of its misery. You don't want to risk the surgery. It's too expensive and it doesn't always work. And she's like, screw you. I'm going to take care of my cat, because he was just mean. And so he's like, you're not going to do it. You're just making this cat suffer more. And then she's like, nope, this is going to happen. And so she starts a GoFundMe, and sure enough, she was able to raise the money for her cat. And there was one person that donated a whole bunch of money, and it turns out it was this vet that donated the money. And then she's like, you see? She takes the cat back to him and she's like, you see, I told you I could do it. And he's like, oh, I'm really proud of you, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to go on a date? Like, just like that. And then the two go on a date, and they get stuck in an escape room. And they have fun, and he realizes that he really likes this girl. However, it turns out that this girl is not going to be there that much longer, because she is moving to, I think it's LA, to go take care of her mom, because her mom has dementia. And he's like, what the heck? Like, you got my hopes up. And she's like, I never told you that I was gonna stay. I didn't tell you that this was my permanent residence. And so she's like, I thought we were just having fun. And so he's a little bummed, but he realizes that he really likes this girl. And so they try to make it work long distance. And it's basically following their relationship as they try to navigate a long distance relationship, all while our main character, the female main character, is dealing with her mom having dementia, she doesn't even remember her. And this book really spoke to me, because my dad has dementia. He's in the early stages of dementia, and I see similar behavior patterns to what her mom is experiencing with dementia. How like they like to, I don't know, that they like find somebody to like blame for I don't know how to explain it. It's just, the representation is so accurate. And this book is definitely a lot darker for one of Abby Jimenez's books. This is probably the darkest Abby Jimenez book that she has, and that's why I rated it 4 stars, because the cover is very misleading. I thought that it was going to be a light and fluffy book, and a lot of her books, even though they do deal with, you know, heavy topics, they tend to be very lighthearted, and I felt like this one had a completely different tone. It was pretty dark. It was pretty dark, but it was reality, you know? And so I really liked it. So I'm gonna be giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. And then the next 4 out of 5 star book that I listened to on audio was Carmilla. And this is a shocker, okay, you guys, because this book was written like 200 years ago, and the only other classic book that I've read like this was like Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and I did not like that book. I didn't really like it. I didn't really care for it, but I was also a lot younger, so I don't know if that's why I was still a teenager. I didn't really fully grasp the book, but this one I did, and I liked it. I had originally rated it 3.5 stars. This is also in my Sapphic Vampire vlog, but I think I'm boosting it up to 4 stars because the more and more I think about it, the more I really enjoy it. So this one, we're basically following our main character, and her name is Laura, and Laura lives in a small town where her dad kind of has her isolated, you know, so her only friends are like the servants. And one night when she's 6 years old, she dreams about a girl huddled in the corner. And then she grows up, now she's 18, and this woman comes into town, barreling into town in a carriage, and she's like, my daughter's sick, I don't know where to leave her. And so Laura's dad is like, well, you need a doctor. And Laura's like, can she just stay here, papa? And so they keep the little girl, or they keep the woman, because she's 18. They keep the woman, and her name is Carmilla, and Laura and Carmilla form a friendship, a bond that blossoms into something a little bit more. And then of course we find out that Carmilla, eventually we find out that she is not a normal person, right? She has some supernatural qualities. And the only complaint that I have with this book is, yes, this book is short. However, the pacing was very consistent up until the end. And then I felt like when it got to the climax, you want the climax to be a little bit more drawn out, right? And it wasn't. It wrapped up in like 10 minutes. And it was like building, and it's like, ah, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, it was like, have you guys seen the Lego movie? And like, they're like, oh, we have to put the bridge together or something like that. And then they like click, and it's just like, it's like this big dramatic moment. And then it's just click. And then like, that's it. It's just so like anticlimactic. That's the problem that I had with this book, is that it was like building and building towards like when we find out that Carmilla is a vampire. That's not a spoiler, that's obvious. And then only for it to be like, yeah, you found out, let's wrap it up. There. It's over. And like, it was so sped through at the very last few pages, like once you find out, and it's like, what was all that for then? And so that's my only complaint with that. However, the fact that it's a 200-plus-year-old book, it still felt like it had like it still felt very feminist to me, even though it was written 200 years ago, and I still like really enjoyed it. That alone gives it a 4-star rating for me, even though the ending was rushed. Speaking of 4-star books, Hungerstone is a retelling of Carmilla. However, our main character, she has a little bit of a different name, Lenore. So instead of Laura, it's Lenore, and she is in her 30s, and she's already been married to this man, right? And this man he's a poop. I don't like him. He's a poop. And so all of a sudden, this woman comes into their lives, and Lenore decides to take care of her because she's sick, and her name is Carmilla. However, Carmilla is again, a woman ahead of her time. She is very feminist. She is like, why do you let your husband talk to you like that? Like, she puts all these ideas in Lenore's head, and at first she hates Carmilla because she's like, why do you keep making me think these thoughts? I was supposed to be a traditional housewife. But then you realize that she realizes that these thoughts that she's like thinking are actually a good thing, and it's just so good. It's just so good. I don't know if I would exactly call this a vampire novel, because I don't even remember them ever mentioning that it was a vampire, that she was a vampire. I think she was just another person. She could have been a vampire, but they never really stated that. But I really did enjoy this book a lot. It was such a, like, very I support women's rights and women's wrongs sort of book, and I love it. I love it. I need more of these in my life. So if you, because that was my biggest issue with historical books, is that a lot, obviously in history, women were kind of treated very poorly. They were treated very poorly, and I hate reading about women being treated like that. And so that's always been my biggest problem with historical fiction. But if you give me a historical fiction book that is feminist, I will gladly dive into that book. So if you guys have more recommendations like this, feminist historical fiction, please send them my way, because apparently I don't mind historical fiction as long as it's feminist. So, or female forward, female positive, you know what I mean? So send me more recs if you have any. So moving on to my 4.5 stars. 4.5 stars. So the first 4.5 star was a shocker to me, because this had two things going against it. One was the fact that it was historical fiction, and I just told you how I feel about most historical fiction. And two, it's YA, which I also don't read. But it won my heart, and that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. In this one, we are following our two main characters. We are following Iris, I believe. Is her name Iris or Isis? I think her name is Iris. Iris. We're following Iris, and we are following Roman. And they are literally rivals at this journalist place, right? Where they are fighting for the same position. However, Iris feels that Roman is going to get it just because his father has a lot more money. And so sure enough, he does get the part, and she's like, you know what, screw you, I'm gonna go be a war correspondent because her brother has been lost at war. Meanwhile, all this is happening, she decides to write letters on her typewriter to her brother, and somebody responds, but it's not her brother. And she realizes that she's able to send these magical letters through this typewriter, and she's communicating with someone. But what she doesn't know is she is communicating with her arch rival, Roman. And so the two form this bond that she doesn't even realize it's him. It's just so good. It was so good. I loved it. I love the way that it finished. I can't wait to get to the second book, because I already have the second one. I'm going to be reading it this month, just to wrap up the duology. And it was great. It was great. It's fantastic. So I actually highly recommend this. Give it a go. Even if you're not into YA, I still say give it a go, because I am not into YA and I still enjoyed this. And the main characters are 18, so technically they are adults. So the next 4.5 star read for me is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This is another book that I read in that Sapphic vampire stories, and this one out of all of them is the book that stood out to me the most. And in this one we are following Constanza, right? Constanta, who is one of Dracula's brides, and we see her perspective of Dracula, of like her being the first wife of Dracula, how he was originally, and then how he just is this toxic, gaslighting, horrible person, but how he can literally make you feel like the world revolves around you and makes you feel like this special person, only for it to be a facade. And then after, you know, the initial glitz and glamour goes away, he starts treating you like dookie. And it was just such a good book. I don't know, I really loved it. I really loved it. I just thought it was so beautiful. The writing was fantastic. And I really liked Constanta and how, just who she was. Like, I just really loved who she was. And I like how it also talked about vampires having long lives, because I always thought about, like, after living for so long, like, do you get bored, you know? And it kind of goes into that, like, after living hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, what new is there in life, you know? I don't know. So I like how they kind of talked about that a little bit. And I don't know, I really enjoyed this book a lot. It was really fun. It was just a beautiful book. It is dark, so check trigger warnings, but I really did enjoy this story a lot. So that's my last of my 4.5 stars, and let's move on to my 5-star reads. One of my first 5-star read is The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wang. like I said, this was Pride Month, so I wanted to read nothing but Pride Month books. And in this one, we are following our two characters. We are following Prince Sebastian, and then we are following Frances. So basically, Frances is a dressmaker, right? And she works for this company making their dresses. And they ask her to make this dress. This girl asked her to make this dress for the ball because she just wants to look crazy. She doesn't want any suitors. And so she makes her something glamorous, like super glamorous, but also super like ritzy. You know what I mean? Like it's not supposed to be something you wear to a ball. And so after that, she ends up getting like, she's like, oh, you know what? We're going to have to fire you because you made us look bad. She was on the newspaper. But then this man comes in and he's like, who's the one that made this dress? And the guy that was like working for her, he's like, oh, that she was working for was like, oh, this is her, but don't worry, we're letting her go. And then he's like, oh, perfect. So I'll take her then and I'll pay her more. And she decides to go with him. And it turns out that she is now asked to make dresses for the prince. And so the prince likes to wear dresses and compete in these shows, but nobody knows that it's the prince. And it was such a beautiful story. Like I really, really loved it. It's about like, you know, it's about loving things and it doesn't matter, like not being like, oh, this is for boys and this is for girls. It's just about learning how to love things without like any explanation as to why you love these certain things and why you know what I mean? It's about acceptance. It's just such a beautiful book. I really, really enjoyed this book a lot. I just thought it was such a fun story. I just had a lot of fun with it. And it is a graphic novel and it's colored, so it was just so amazing. Like I loved it. So that's one of my 5-star reads. But my last 5-star read is this one. I had to give this one 5 stars because, and this one is also the one that broke me out of my reading slump. So this had to be 5 stars. And that is Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. I loved this book. This is a tiny little book, but in this one we are following our main character, Nancy. And Nancy has gone to this world, right? It's kind of like an underworld. Like once you go into these fantasy worlds, you don't want to come back, right? Because you see this world that is so much more amazing than the reality that we have here. And so her parents don't know what to do with her because she went missing for a while and then she came back. And so they think that she's just plain crazy. And they think that she's just plain bonkers. So they send her to this school that turns out to be a school for people that have gone to fantasy worlds and have come back from them, right? Because the chances of you going back to that fantasy world are slim to none. And so we see her as she goes to this school and she sees how other characters also are like, how they feel too and how they're ready to go back. And then it's just so good. And then once that happens, once she gets there, these murders start happening, and so it's a mystery as well. It was just a really beautiful book. Again, another book where I really enjoyed the writing. We have an asexual main character, so we have that LGBTQIA plus representation in it, and I don't think I've ever read a main character that is asexual. This is the first book that I've ever read like that. And I love it. And I love it. It was just so, I don't know how to say it. Like, it was just such a good book. It was just such a good book. It was like, I don't know. I don't want to say it's fast paced. It wasn't slow paced. It had pretty steady pacing. And I just loved it. It really felt like a fairy tale. And the way that it was wrapped up was just gorgeous and wrapped up in a pretty little bow that I do want to read the rest of the series. And I wonder what the rest of the series is going to entail. Are we going to be following the same school? We're going to a different school? You know what I mean? Like, I wonder who we'll be following. So this was just a really good book. I overall just loved it. If you want something that is cozy yet still has a little bit more high stakes, I highly recommend this. It's just so good. It's so good. So that is it, you guys. That is all the books that I read during the month of June. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!